Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doug Hammond, and joining me in presenting is Donna Brescher. Donna is our certification officer for the Tech Teach program, and if you can see in the background there, there's a whiteboard, and that's where the magic happened in terms of planning our last Grow Your Own grant. So uh, it's a long process involving a lot of people. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to share my screen and start our presentation. So the purpose of this fourth webinar here is to provide some tips about applying for the Grow Your Own grant based on some lessons we've learned from applying in previous cycles. My hope is that other folks from universities and districts will hear this and watch our webinar and get some ideas and realize that it's definitely a doable grant, and there's a lot of benefit and a lot of professionally rewarding things that come out of applying. So um, um, our goal is to have lots of people apply this time. I also want to make a disclaimer that we are not by any means the official webinar for TEA. I believe that happens on September 27th. Everybody ought to definitely watch that one. But we just are kind of providing some background to applying and some things that we think perhaps made us successful. So the presentation really is focused on trying to support those who are new to navigating the application and helping folks looking at the application know really what to keep in mind as they're planning things out. And if you've read the grant already, you're probably thinking, "Holy moly, how am I going to get this all organized?" There's a lot of things to be organized before the due date in November, but it's definitely all doable, and we hope this will help give you a jump start to that. So there are 5 things we'd like to visit with you about. One is kind of TEA's theory of action for this particular grant. And if we keep that in mind, both the pathways will make sense, and also seeing the big picture about how we can engage with partners in rural school districts will really start to make sense. I'll visit briefly about the pathway requirements and just note some of the things that are new or things to pay attention to. Donna will visit with you about cultivating those partnerships and recruiting students. And then a bit about things that are new in the grant this year about how the university applicants will need to support the school districts. And then a bit about sustainability, which is, of course, important to be considering right from the outset. So the theory of action for the folks at TEA who prepared this grant program involves these steps, I believe. First of all, they believe that if rural school districts will begin to cultivate their own talent, the people who live in their community, to become teachers, then they have a greater likelihood of identifying people in the community who want to be in the rural communities and who are committed to the rural communities. And the second part of that theory of action is that if teacher preparation programs provide support to those local districts who are seeking to cultivate their own talent, then the rural school districts can be proactive in addressing their own problem. But it's going to take both district action as well as teacher preparation action to begin to solve that problem. So with those in mind, then we can understand better what it was that how it is that the grant program has been structured. And I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself here. So really this presentation is about how teacher preparation programs, educator preparation programs, can cultivate can help cultivate talent in those local rural school districts. Okay, I'd like to just mention a little bit about the pathways to that the grant involves. So if you were with us on the previous presentation, you know that, or if you've read the grant, you know that there's really three pathways for growing your own in this grant program. One has to do with a school district improving or starting education and training courses for teacher preparation, and can include partnering with a community college district to offer coursework that is dual credit. It also involves making sure that you have a healthy student organization that's aimed at raising the profile of the career of becoming a teacher, as well as nurturing those individuals who are interested in becoming teachers. Pathway 2 is also a district-led pathway involving identification of individuals who are in the local community and who are able to go on and earn their bachelor's degree and or their certification. And there's funding that will support an individual completing their educator preparation program while they're working there in the school district. And then, of course, Pathway 3 is the one that's led by universities. The university is the fiscal agent. And this is the one that I want to have us focus on a bit more this afternoon. The university, as I mentioned before, and probably somebody within your teacher preparation program is going to be the one who prepares this, but it's the university that is the fiscal agent for this particular grant. And the funding limits that are set out in Pathway 3 allow a university to prepare up to 22 teacher candidates. So it's the teacher candidate in this pathway receives a $15,000 stipend over the year. There's $5,000 allocated for the university to support that candidate in the rural district, and then there's some overhead monies included in that. So you take the number of candidates that you have, multiply by $22,000, and you get very quickly to the maximum. This year is a little bit different. There's a 2-year funding cycle for Pathway 3. Unfortunately, it's a 2-year cycle that does not increase the number of candidates that can be prepared, but it does give you time it does give, especially somebody who's new starting this, it does give you a little bit of time to cultivate those partnerships and begin to build a pipeline and talk with your students who are who aren't as far along in the program about having this possibility when they do arrive in their senior year. There's also two ways that educator preparation programs can support candidates in rural school districts. One is through an intensive pre-service pathway, which involves, I guess in most cases, it's going to involve some intensive clinical experience in May and possibly over the summer months where there's summer school supported by a university supervisor. And then in their senior year, in their last year of teacher preparation, those individuals are hired as the teacher of record in the rural school district, still being supported by the university while they're completing that internship. And then, of course, the more traditional pathway that we're used to with a teacher candidate doing a year-long student teaching. In the third pathway, or pathway number 3, there can be recruiting both in the local school district in partnership with the school district, as well as recruiting from within the ranks of the candidates who are already in your program. New this year is that when you partner with your school district and they say we'd like to have this individual come out and student teach in our district, the district makes a commitment to hire that individual, and that's formalized in an MOU, and it's intended that school districts, when they partner with you, they will actually think about and try to anticipate the openings that they're going to have. And then the educator preparation program is also, through a formalized MOU, obligated to support the education and training course delivery in the district, meaning they do class visits, for example, to describe teacher preparation. And it could also involve supporting organizations like Future Teachers of America or Ready, Set, Teach, student organizations. So we'd like to visit with you a little bit about how do we find district partners and how do we find candidates to participate. And somebody that's an expert on that, Ms. Donna Brescher.
Thank you. So as I was thinking about all we've been through in each of the rounds we've been through so far, we've tried lots of things. And I was thinking initially we started our rural partnership with Snyder ISD before the grants existed. So we had a little bit of experience in working with rural districts. And then if you were on the previous conference, you heard Sean Mason from Crosbyton ISD talk about the need that they had in coming to us and saying, hey, we need your help. And I remember Dean Ridley, when he first came to Texas Tech, giving us the challenge that if we're a teacher preparation program, we need to be meeting the needs of our community partners. So I think we took that to heart, and so it's really important to us that we are meeting the needs of our community partners. And in West Texas, we have a lot of rural districts, so it's really important that we're able to help them meet the needs of finding teachers in their districts. So one of the best routes that we found is working with a community college. And I don't know how many of you have community college partnerships and articulation agreements, but that was the way that we really started in building in Snyder, and then also so working with Western Texas College, and then here in the Lubbock area working with South Plains College and establishing those articulation agreements, because lots of the students attending those community colleges are looking to then begin educator preparation and then go back home to teach. So the big idea of Grow Your Own is working with those candidates who don't mind working or staying in those rural districts because that's home for them. And so that helps us to continue that sustainability of those teachers then staying in those communities. So establishing those partnerships with the community colleges, it takes a lot of work in articulation in what we call course crosswalks and going back and forth to find what will work for the candidate. We don't want them wasting hours that they've taken at the community college, but we also want to make sure that we're meeting our degree requirements. So that takes a lot of work. And then the superintendents really help us out by working within their districts and saying, you know, we have these paras, or we have school secretaries who maybe had some community college hours or who they think have a lot of potential. And so they send those students to us and we help them to determine a path forward in community. And I keep saying community college because that is the, I'm going to call it the path of least resistance for students. So sometimes it's easier for them to complete that 2 years there and then either complete the 2 years at Tech or with our 2+1 or Tech Teach Across Texas program to complete in 1 year through that online program. So again, just trying to cultivate those students that are already in those districts. And then we also looked internally to our candidates that were already in the program to say, hey, if you live in those rural areas and you want to go back home, is that a pathway for you that you might want to look at completing the program and maybe going back home to work in your rural district?
If I could interject just a little bit, Donna. So I would encourage you, even if you don't have necessarily a partnership already that exists with a district, give them a call. They'll be surprised to hear from you, and they'll be happy to hear from you. I would predict. And then, of course, don't underestimate having a district contact you. Hopefully, there'll be some district folks watching this and say, "Hey, I'd like to partner with this university," and so they'll be able to get in touch with you that way.
I would say that's absolutely true, Doug. And I think we probably get calls or emails once a week or so saying, hey, I've heard about your program and how can I come on board with the Tech Teach program so that we can participate. And I don't know if you want me to talk about this or not, so you can give me the lie if you don't.
Oh
But
no.
one problem that we've kind of run into is we have lots of people who want to partner with us, and through the grant, because they're requiring them to be hired, is now they really want our teacher candidates in the program, but they don't necessarily have space to hire them. And so since the grant is requiring that they hire, it requires those superintendents to really think ahead and see who or what openings they might have coming in the future, and then be ready to hire those people.
Yes, yes, that is definitely a good issue to have. But and Donna, would you speak a little bit? Remember when we first got the candidates together and you presented them about the benefits of teaching in a rural school?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Again, when we applied for and got the first Grow Your Own grant, we kind of had to think on our feet and decide where we were going to go with that. So we had some meetings at the Education Service Center with those rural superintendents. And then from that, we're able to cultivate a group to talk to. And so we talked about a lot. We talked a lot about the benefits of working in those rural districts, and we even had some teacher candidates say, well, you know, they don't hire as much as maybe the more urban school district does. But we had to talk about that a lot of those rural districts, they aren't the small rural one-room schoolhouse that a lot of people think about when they think of rural schools. A lot of these small rural districts have new schools with the latest innovations in technology. They have new buildings that serve as shelters for their communities. They have professional development support from the Region Service Center, so the best in professional development for those districts. And you have that support from the community, that they support you in being there. They appreciate you being there, and you get to participate not only in the school but also in the community. And your pay may not be as high as it is working in an urban district, but the cost of living in those communities is a lot less as well. So it really is attractive to work in a rural school district.
And we remember when we heard from our candidates who went to Floydada, how they got a laptop, they got their card, and lunch, I believe was
Thank
provided.
you. Yes, I've actually forgotten about that, but yes, they got a free lunch card, so they get free lunch. They got a laptop right off the bat, a key to the school so that they could come and go. I mean, they truly welcome them, and they are a part of the school and therefore a part of the community. And so our candidates were just so impressed with that. If they had any doubt whatsoever that they might want to work in that district, it was banished right away, and they were all happy to be working in all of our rural districts.
We also found out that we have a pretty large number of students who are coming to Lubbock, but actually who want to go back to, they want to go back to their home and they want to go back to their school district. So one of the strategies we did was we started looking at where are people from.
That's really true, and that's what I was talking about when we kind of cultivated from within the group that we already had. We have a lot of people who were going to the community college and then coming to tech. I mean, they might be planning to go back home, or they might not, but then being able to offer them the Grow Your Own grant was a great incentive for them to be able to return home where maybe they wanted to be anyway. And as I was looking at my notes, I forgot to mention that as we're starting to recruit, meeting with women's groups, with the Lions Club, those are lots of things that we've done in Snyder with all of your local community groups, because maybe there are candidates out there that they hadn't even thought about being a teacher, but given this opportunity through this grant that might support them in being able to have that benefit of maybe quitting their job while they're completing the teacher preparation program would be a really big benefit for them. So think outside the box, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Things that you've maybe never thought of before, or places to recruit candidates. There are candidates out there who are really interested and want to hear.
Excellent. Thank you. So one part of the grant that is a little bit different this year, it's always kind of been an implicit part of the grant to make it work effectively. But this time it is an explicit part, and that is that the educator preparation program is required to support the education and training courses at the district high school. So if when we partner, for example, with Brownfield ISD, we're going to become involved and help cultivate at Brownfield those education and training courses. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And all of that is assured through an MOU. So Donna, would you visit with us a little bit about how it is that we could do that?
Yes, and I'd like to add to what you just said is I've done a lot of research on rural districts. There are many programs that work with their Ready, Set, Teach programs, or it's actually known as Educators Rising, and that's across the nation, not just in the Texas area. And so states like Illinois and California have worked with their Ready, Set, Teach programs or with Educators Rising and have found a lot of success in improving their teaching pool through that specific Grow Your Own program. So there is a lot of precedent for making these types of programs work. If you were on the previous seminar, you heard Sherry say that Muleshoe ISD brought their, and Spring Lake Earth brought their Ready, Set, Teach students to Texas Tech for a visit. And as we were talking with them, a lot of them didn't know what to ask, but just seeing the Texas Tech campus was impressive to them and made them think that maybe this is doable. And as they got warmed up, they did have a lot of questions, and maybe they weren't sure they wanted to be a teacher, but maybe they'd not even given it a thought before. So being able to come to campus and to visit with us and see what teachers do and see some of the classrooms really helped to tweak their interest. And I was able to go to Muleshoe last week for a follow-up visit with some of the students. And so this time they had more questions for me than they had before, and really interested in the path and how can I afford college is now the question that they're starting to think about. So that's a great thing about the grant that would provide that opportunity for us. I would encourage you to stay in touch with the high school counselors. Often they are our direct link with the students. And I know sometimes it's hard to get onto every one of those campuses and visit the Ready, Set, Teach classes or the visit with the TAFE organizations, but those counselors are a great resource to provide that information to the students. Early college high school is also a path that we've used to reach students with the Associate of Arts in Teaching, or many of them complete with the Associate of Science degree, and then we're able to work out a pathway with them so that they can enter college. And I will say initially we were thinking 18-year-olds entering the program, but we've had quite a bit of success with the early college high school students entering our program, so that's a great pathway. And then again, just the community college and their Associate of Arts in Teaching program, or even Associate of Science programs, we're able to work those into the pathways so that you have to create a pool of students and you've got to start somewhere. So those are great places to start and to continue to cultivate.
So if you think about the theory of action behind all this, the grant program, of course, it's about, again, about helping the school districts identify folks who are in their community, who are interested in working and staying and teaching in the community, and then finding an educator preparation program that can help bridge that gap, including driving out to Muleshoe and talking about financial aid. One other thing that is maybe a longer term strategy, but if you do partner with a rural school district and you do place teacher candidates out there and you are working with their ETC or TAFE organization or student organization, having those students come and watch or even interview your teacher candidate, that's a great recruiting strategy for your institution. It's a great way to interest a high school student in becoming a teacher. They see a near peer being successful and becoming a teacher there, right there in their school, and they think, well, I want to do this, and they can do it, and I bet I can too. So don't underestimate also then kind of the role that your teacher candidates can play in helping to recruit and help sustain and create this pipeline of teachers.
And Doug, I may just add that that's kind of a weakness that we've identified is that maybe we haven't had a good tracking system for students that are completing Ready, Set, Teach in our community schools. So that's something that a strategy that we're starting to work on is to track those students to see if they're attending community college, and if they're not, why not? What can we do to support them? And then tracking them from the community college into the university, or if they're in the university, supporting them in any way that we can. So creating an easy, seamless pathway for those students who are in those future teacher programs or Ready, Set, Teacher programs directly into teaching, so that we're not losing them along the way.
And Dawn and her advising team have done a great job in overhauling kind of how they intake students and how they track them and where they come from in ways that we didn't before. And it's a result of this this grant activity. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so also a new part of the Cycle 3 grant is making a plan for sustainability, and it should be part of anything we do when we have funding, but it's explicitly part of the funding application this time. So these are some ways that I speculate, and I'm sure there are many others, but some of the ways that we can help sustain the program after the funding cycle is that if we do become involved in the Ready, Set, Teach or the Future Teach of America or TAFE or whatever it is, if we do become involved or when we become involved with the school districts after the funding cycle ends, it doesn't mean that that activity has to stop. And so many of the Texas universities have as part of their mission and goals is to engage the community. Texas A&M and the College of Ed there has a really great one that we heard about last week. So if you think about this activity as a community engagement activity or a community engaged scholarship, this is definitely an opportunity where institutional resources from the university can be used to continue to support this activity. There are also some pretty innovative ways about how title funding can be used to support teacher preparation, and I wish I was had expertise in this area. I just know it exists. There are ways of supporting after-school programs. There are ways that individuals can serve as tutors, other than also teacher candidate in the district. And so, you know, after the funding runs out, are there ways that the district can continue to provide a financial incentive for committing oneself and preparing to be a teacher in a rural school district? And then, of course, there are resources on the part of institution of higher ed that could be allocated to this. If Texas Tech has a priority to begin to serve the needs of our rural communities, and many of the institutions around the state also have that commitment. And so, is there an explicit effort at providing a teacher preparation program that tries to meet the needs of the rural school districts? We have a lot and need more teacher preparation programs that are focused on urban teacher preparation, but it's reasonable that some institutions that are positioned to do it could also then begin to address rural issues. And then I guess something that I bet everybody knows or has had experience, when you do have a partnership and you strike up a friendship, you strike up a good working relationship with somebody in either a district or a university, and then they go away and that activity stops. So as you're thinking about sustainability, it needs to be an institutional relationship, not just a personal relationship, and that can be accomplished in a couple of ways. One is through a formal agreement, an MOU, and it can also be done by including a lot of different people from a lot of different roles, both from the university and the school district, so that if somebody does go away, there's people who have institutional memory and buy into the process, so it doesn't just go away if somebody changes. Donna, any more sustainability tips? Get a whiteboard like the
Get a
one behind you.
whiteboard, make lots of notes, lots of communication, lots of follow-up.
Okay, and I guess the other kind of broad thing that I bet you would agree with, and that is trying to overcome the obstacles. You know, what are the things that keep somebody from going from a high school to your institution, and then what keeps them from going from that institution back to teach in the district? So finding ways to overcome those.
I would say that's really true. And in thinking all that we've done, and especially to build our 2+1 program, communicating with financial aid, because if our students are completing in 1 year, they receive more aid than a student who goes in 2 years. And just, I mean, we've learned so many lessons along the way. So don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask questions, because you never know. They might say no, but they also might say yes, that we've also learned.
And our experience at Tech, I'm sure it will be similar to other institutions, but those other offices in your institution, they are happy to help, and they take a good bit of satisfaction in knowing that they're helping this program be successful. So don't hesitate to reach out. I think we have our own page on one of the financial aid, right? It's just for Tech Teach across Texas.
It's true.
That's right. So sustainability is also going to involve really some frank conversations. Where can the support come from? What is realistic? What are the goals that we're trying to accomplish? So that happens with a great district partner and a great teacher preparation program. And they are among the, as I said before, they have been for me one of the most rewarding aspects of my career, and that is this partnership work with the school districts. So we've visited a little bit about the TEA's theory of action, about how all this Grow Your Own is supposed to work. We've identified requirements, particularly for Pathway 3, learned about some strategies for both cultivating partners as well as recruiting students, thought about some ways that a university can continue that support for the school district's teacher preparation program within the district, which is a new requirement, and then thinking about sustainability. So I think you heard a lot about things that you can keep in mind. It is a big process. It does involve lots of time spent in front of whiteboards and talking to different offices and different folks within your program. You've also got to think about, are there changes to my teacher preparation program that need to happen? How do we pick partners, etc. So hopefully you've got some ideas. And I think that's all we've got here for this particular webinar. And I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see if we have any questions. Oh, there's a big one. Okay, this one says, according to the Texas Education Agency from 2017 to 18 statistics, show that 52% of the Latino population there's a 52% population in Texas, which means a demand for teachers of color. Do you offer any opportunities for bilingual ed candidates, or in what ways can you support monolinguals interested to teach this population of ELLs? Does Texas Tech have teaching bilingual preparation program? Donna, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, you want to take any part of that?
Sure. So a lot of research in looking at Grow Your Own is in particular to addressing the needs of diversity, or teachers of color, in not only rural districts, but also in urban districts. So yes, Texas Tech does have a bilingual teacher preparation program. One thing I will say that kind of surprised Doug and I in rural specific is that they didn't necessarily have a need for bilingual teachers. And so maybe that's just different in other areas of the state. And we do know in our urban areas, we're working with some of the Grow Your Own, there is that definite need, but in rural areas, not so much. But we do have a bilingual program. As Doug was saying earlier, sometimes you have to look at the hurdles that those students have to leap over, and what ways can we do to adjust our program to stay within state regulations, but also provide a pathway for those students. And I think that will be different for every educator preparation program. So we certainly don't violate policies, but sometimes we've had to look at, maybe it's a curve instead of a straight line that the students have to follow in order to be able to get there.
And I'll say also, I'll add to that, thank you. I'll add to that also that the idea of recruiting teacher candidates from a community, what you're getting is a teacher candidate who knows the community, is from the community, looks like the community. And so the idea of having teachers of color from the communities with students of color is definitely behind some of the goals in this grant program. So thank you for that question, Erica.
I don't see any other questions, Doug, but I was thinking, while maybe people are thinking of some questions, I know Dr. Gagnon presented last week, and so in thinking specifically about rural areas, what kind of financial support could the district offer that maybe they hadn't thought of before? And you talked a little bit about this. How can you use your Title II funds differently, and even universities to maybe support that? Thinking about recruiting for geographic location, because again, just as you said, if a district is made up of a lot of diversity, then when you're recruiting those local students, then they will look like the students that are in their classrooms. And then that communities of practice, so mentoring and induction programs that can be created with the school districts or within the university, providing distance learning opportunities, so students don't have to travel an hour or a half hour even to get to campus, and then establishing those partnerships are really important pathways to fulfilling those needs for teachers of diversity and also teachers in rural areas.
Absolutely, and we heard a lot about that last week also from Stephen F. Austin. They spoke about how they had to kind of modify some coursework and the delivery, as well as West Texas A&M. We have another question here. It says, in the application required components, what do we need to include in the description of an MOU? And so there is also a resource provided at the same place as the application that spells out exactly what needs to be in the MOU. So there's pretty clear guidelines on what needs to go in there, both in terms of the MOU with the school district, as well as the MOU that the school district and the teacher candidate have to come to agreement in. One bit of advice I will give everybody who's in the universities, and that is, if you are a representative of the teacher preparation program, you do not sign MOUs. That has to come from a higher authority within your institution. You can definitely help draft it, and it probably will go through your contracting office, but you can help put it together. But don't make the mistake I did and sign it. I'm not authorized. I would also encourage you to go to the TEA website and look at Cycle 1 and Cycle 2. There are several higher ed institutions who were successful with the grant. And I would encourage you to look to see what it is that they did and how they structured their program. I've got a question for folks who are in the audience, especially those who are representing a university. What are the obstacles you're anticipating? What are the struggles you're seeing as you read this? And you can type that in the chat if you'd like. And if you're driving in your car, don't try to answer that question. Okay, well, folks are headed home, I think. Oh, here's one. Let's see. So it says that you have not received any confirmation from the school district that they are willing to participate. Yeah, so partnership is tough work, and it's kind of like dating. You gotta show your good faith here. Phone calls are 1,000 times better than emails, and attending in person, showing up in person, is better than anything else. And coming with a willingness to roll up your sleeves and make decisions and make things happen. So if your school district isn't responding, drive on out there. Yep, keep trying. That's right. That's right.
And Doug, I would say don't be afraid to look beyond your urban areas, and maybe don't be afraid to start small. I see Dr. Harvey's on the line, and he's told us that he's tried reaching out to universities to partner with him in the Fayetteville area, and that's been a struggle. So don't be afraid to start with a small district in one or two. It will definitely grow, as we've learned.
Yep. Yeah, it will. It will. And if you think about the volume of email we get every day, superintendents get that plus. So if that's your point of contact, you may just be getting lost in the inbox. Lots of things going on. I had a meeting with a superintendent in an undisclosed district the other day who was busy doing a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily expect a superintendent to do. I'm sure they weren't in his job description, but the man's busy and he's taking care of business. So just go visit him. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up here. I hope everybody listening, either live or in the recording, wish you success with your application. And I'm going to offer Don and myself as resource if you have questions about the application or any of these processes. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So thanks for tuning in. This concludes our conference on our Rural Grow Your Own Teacher Preparation Program. If you missed any of the previous 3 sessions, you'll be able to find the recordings at the registration website. So thank you all so much, and best of luck. Thanks, Donna.